that, yes. So word for word, Atmanam cha anushochami bhavantam cha amara uttamam devan pitrin rishin sadhun sarvan varnan tata ashraman atmanam chanushuchami bhavantam chamarotamam devan pitrin shrin sadhun sarvan varangstatashraman atmanang chanushochami bhavantam chamarotamam devan pitrin rishin sad sarvang svarang statashraman atmanam chanushochami bhavantam chamarotamam devan pitrin rishin sadhun sarvan varang statashraman.
Atmanam janushochami
Atmanam shochami
bhavantam chamarottamam
bhavantam chanarotamam
devan pitrin drishin sadhun
devan pitrin rishin
sarvan varnam statashraman
sarvan statashraman.
Atmanam janushochami
Atmanam shochami
bhavantam chamarotamam
bhavantam chamarotamam
devan pritrin rishin sadhun
devan pitrin rishin sadhun
sarvan varnabstatasraman
sarvan varang statashraman.
Atmanam chanushochami
Atmanam shanuchochami
bhavantam chamarotamam
bhavantam chamarotamam
devan pitrin rishin sadhun
pitrin rishin sadhun
sarvan varnang statashraman.
sarvan varang statashraman.
Atmanam chanushochami
Atmanam chanushochami
bhavantam chamarodvatam
bhavantam chamarotamam
devan pitrin vishin sadhun
devan pitrin rising sadhun
sarvan varnam statashramam
sarvan varang statashramam.
Atmanam chanushochami
Atmanam chanushochami
bhavantam chamarotamam
bhavantam chamarotamam
devan pitrin rishin sadhun
devan pitrin rising sadhun
sarvan varnam statashraman
sarvan varang statashraman.
Atmanam chanushochami
Atmanam chanushochami
bhavantam chamarotamam
bhavantam samarotamam
devan pitrin rishin sadhun
sadhun
sarvan varnam statashraman.
sarvan varang statashraman.
Atmanam chanushocami.
Atmanam nanushocami.
Bhavatam chamarotamam.
Bhavantam Bhagavatam.
Devan pitrin rishin sadun. Sarvan varnam tatasraman.
Anybody online? Okay.
Atmanam Chanushocami.
Atmanam chanushocami.
Bhavatam Chamarotamam.
Bhavantam chamarotamam.
Andrichin Rishin Sadhun. Sarvam Varnas Tatashraman.
Shamam.
Atmanam chanushocami.
Chami.
Bhavatam chamarotamam. Devam pitrin rishin sadhun. Sarvan varnam tatasraman.
Thank you very much. Word for word, Atmanam, myself. Cha, also. Anushochami, lamenting. Bhavantam, yourself. Cha, as well as. Amara Uttamam, the best amongst the demigods. Devan, about the demigods. Pitrin, about the denizens of the Pitraloka planet. Rishin, about the sages. Sadhun, about the devotees. Sarvan, all of them. Varnan, sections. Tata, as also. Ashraman, orders of human society. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I am thinking, this is the personality of earth in the form of a cow. I am thinking about myself and also, O best amongst the demigods, about you, as well as about all the demigods, sages, denizens of Pitraloka, devotees of the Lord, and all men obedient to the system of Varna and Ashram in human society. Purport. To affect the perfection of human life, there is cooperation between men and demigods, sages, denizens of the Pitraloka, devotees of the Lord, and the scientific system of Varna and Ashram orders of life. The distinction between human life and animal life, therefore, begins with the scientific system of Varna and Ashram. Guided by the experience of the sages in relation with the demigods, gradually rising to the summit of reestablishing our eternal relation with the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. When God made Varnashram Dharma, which is strictly meant for developing animal consciousness into human consciousness, and human consciousness into godly consciousness, is broken by advancement of foolishness, the whole system of peaceful and progressive life is at once disturbed. In the age of Kali, the first attack of the venomous snake strikes against the God-made Varnashram Dharma, and thus a person properly qualified as a Brahmana is called a Shudra. And a Shudra, by qualification, is passing as a Brahmana, all on a false birthright claim. To become a Brahmana by a birthright claim is not at all bona fide, although it may be a fulfillment of one of the conditions. But the real qualification of a Brahmana is to control the mind and the senses and to cultivate tolerance, simplicity, cleanliness, knowledge, truthfulness, devotion, faith in the Vedic wisdom. In the present age, consideration of the necessary qualification is being neglected, and the false birthright claim is being supported even by a popular, sophisticated poet, the author of Rama Charita Manasa. This is all due to the influence of the age of Kali. Thus, Mother Earth, represented as a cow, was lamenting the regrettable condition. Om Agyanatamarandasya Gyanajana Shalakaya Chakshurumalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I am thinking about myself and also, O best amongst the demigods, about you, as well as about all the demigods, sages, denizens of Pitraloka, devotees of the Lord, and all men obedient to the system of Varna and Ashram in human society. So the personality of the earth deity, yes, in the form of cow, is replying to the personality of religious principles who is in the form of a boar. So we heard that the bull or Dharma in the form of a bull was asking the cow what is the source of her lamentation. And so we heard in the 2 classes ago, yesterday she was explaining all sorts of qualities that reside within the Lord. And we didn't get to speak about all of them, but she glorifies the Supreme Lord. And now she's expressing that, she is considering basically all beings, and particularly those which have a great influence on the wellness of the world, the devotees, the demigods, the men, the people, especially those in the Varnashram society. So this Varnashram is set up by Krishna, Chaturvarnyam Maya Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha, that Krishna explains that he is the creator of this system, the 4 Varnas, 4 ashrams, and although he is the creator, he is still independent from this system, and he is not subject to the system. So this system we hear about in today, if we paid attention in school, or if we maybe didn't pay so much attention, still we heard about the caste system in India. When you hear about India, our idea is mostly, oh yeah, they have this weird caste system, which is, totally different from what we have today is in America, this capitalist society where, there's a dream that everybody could be the one to make the American dream. Everybody can rise up in ranks, and you could be anything you desire. This is the land of opportunity, right? So, it's the land of opportunity, they say, but we see that more or less, there's a low percentage of people that hold most of the wealth in the country, and then, the rest. So, how is that so fair? But anyway, the principle is God, the principle behind this society, or the motivation, is simply one out of sense gratification, because you want to get the money so that you can enjoy life. You can travel, you can have vacations, you can buy a nice car, you can do so many things with your money. And so it gives some illusion of freedom, but actually we become so bound by our activities in this society. We become karmically bound. And the Varnashram society is a scientific social structure which was established or created by Krishna so that one can make advancement in human life. And we hear that it's basically the beginning of human life. Why? Because the Varnashram system is supposed to be meant for one to perform their duties, prescribed duties in this world in cooperation with the others in society to basically please the Supreme Lord. This is the real purpose of it, is that one could be peaceful in society and in their particular prescribed duties. And if they have proper brahmanas and proper kshatriyas, then people will be making advancement towards God consciousness, towards the goal of life, which is to become a pure devotee of the Lord. So now we see in this capitalist society, it gives rise to animalistic consciousness because, like I said, it's just about, enjoying material energy and rising up in ranks, rising up so you can make more money and like this. But actually, what's interesting is that you might think that if I get a higher position or if I get more money, then I'll have more freedom. But actually, you have more responsibility, and you have more causes of anxiety, right? If you get so much wealth and you're in anxiety, how to maintain, have to look after and make decisions about. And so it's not actually what it seems to be. And that is the nature of the material world, is that there is happiness and there is distress in equal amount. And we're allotted a particular amount in this body. It's already got its quota here of happiness and distress. So, yes, by following this system Krishna has set up, then we can gradually rise to God consciousness. And more or less, when we become to devotional service, we're simply just trying to get out of animal consciousness. We're trying to just learn what it's like to be a human being. I believe if you read the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it explains the qualities of a human being. And it's a pretty high standard. Of course, the Vedas explain Tato Brahma Jigasa, that simply this inquiry into the absolute truth, what is Brahman, what is the purpose of life, these questions are the start of our, you could say it's like the start of your journey to human consciousness, because you might ask these questions, but still be involved in so much animalistic behavior. So with the human form, its dharma is to awaken to God consciousness. That's the natural duty or natural tendency of the human being, is to come to God realization. We see that in every human society, practically, there is a conception of God, or a conception of a higher power, right? A conception of a supreme, or some force which is above us. So therefore, we understand that the principle, the tendency of the human to inquire into higher truth is there in all in basically all cultures and in all human societies. I mean, we say human societies, but they may not actually be like humans, but people in the human form, there's always this conception of God. And therefore, he's the most famous. Nobody can be more famous than God, because everybody's thinking about him. There's a point we made previously, but yes, the age of Kali first strikes against the God-made Varna-Ashram Dharma. And then we see that that's, many people, when they hear about India and America, they become disinterested because they think it's just a whole corrupt country because of this caste system. But unfortunately, we're not educated with what the real purpose of it. And over time, within India's history, right, the Varnas started to become, like it says here, more based off of birth than qualification. So there's that analogy that you might be a son of a judge, but it doesn't necessarily, just because you took birth from a judge's family, just because you took birth from your father who's a judge, doesn't give you the qualification to also be a judge. You also need to be educated. But you could say that it actually helps you become qualified because now you have a father who's a judge who can share with you the ins and outs about living, about the duties of a judge and the different intricacies, and you can become expert in it. And we see that actually does happen with somebody, let's say like many people who play sports, their father might have been a good athlete, and so then the son gets a lot of good qualities and good training from his father who was a good athlete, and then they become really good in the sport. So it's like that. So if you're born in a Brahmana family, then you have a good opportunity to become a Brahmana, but it's not based on birth alone. And that is the corruption of this age of Kali. And therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, this was one of his main missions, was to reestablish this proper understanding of it being based off qualification, of being qualified to be a Brahmana was based off qualification. So he had these caste Goswamis that were claiming that they were descendants of Lord Nityananda and that they could only be true Brahmanas. And there is so much evidence in scripture that it's overwhelming, against all the arguments about just birthright. And I believe this is explained in Nectar of Devotion about that. So there is that example of a son of I believe a maidservant or a prostitute. I don't exactly remember. And he didn't know who his father was. And somehow or other, he wanted to become a Brahmana, so he went to the place, and the head there, it might have been a Gurukul, the head of the Gurukul, who was a Brahmana, asked him, who is your father? What is your gotra? And what line do you come from? And he plainly said, I don't know, actually. I don't know who my father is. And my mom is so-and-so, but I don't know who my true father is. And so then he became admitted into the institution or the Gurukul because he was so straightforward and truthful, whereas he could have lied, like, oh yes, someone, this person, that person from this gotra, this brahmana family. So there's specific qualities which are there, and Prabhupada mentions here that the real qualification is to control the mind, the senses, cultivate tolerance, simplicity, cleanliness, knowledge, truthfulness, devotion, faith, in the Vedic wisdom. And these are more or less what the qualities with Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita in the 18th chapter. Prabhupada says, in the present age, consideration of necessary qualifications is being neglected, and the false birthright claim is being supported even by a popular, sophisticated poet, the author of Ramacharita Manasa. So, I haven't heard that before, but it'd be interesting to research about this person and what he's actually claiming. What details. So this is all due to the influence of the age of Kali. So we don't have to be surprised, it's just part of this age. It's part of this degradation of society in this age of Kali. So many things are being degraded, and it's the age of Kali, so we have to expect. And everybody is always disturbed above all. There's always some disturbance. So, therefore, we have to just take shelter of the holy name and this Sankirtan, the congregational chanting of the holy name, and then we'll be free from the influence of this age of Kali. And then we'll actually be able to have God consciousness, even in a life and society that supports God consciousness. Supports animal consciousness. So, this is the power of Lord Chaitanya, the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. If you're feeling tired, you can stand up in the back, and therefore you won't fall asleep. Maya is so strong that being tired, the sleepy is so strong, even if there's, sounds of power drills, we'll still feel sleepy. Okay, are there any comments or questions? Yes, Bhakta Jacob?
Hare Krishna, thanks for your class, Prabhu. I was thinking of, how Prabhupada mentions so many things. That's one of his main points is Varnashram Dharma. He talks about it quite often because it's a point he wants to get across. And so I was thinking, the Varna and Ashram, am I correct in saying that it's also a material system, and identifying as a Brahmin can be a hindrance, can also be like identifying as the body, or as identifying as a Kshatriya or a Brahmachari or a Vanapras, that's also like a designation, it's a material designation. Is that right?
So what was the initial point?
Just the Varnashram Dharmas, it's a material system. Am I correct in saying that's a material system, but it's made by Krishna? Because you said in there originally Chatu Varnam.
Yeah, Chatu Varnam Mayashishtam.
Yeah.
Well, Daiva Varnashram. So it is a divine system, in its pure form, but it deals with sociology. So it deals with material things. It helps arrange, the material aspects of life, like one's duties, one's work, qualities of nature, But the whole purpose of it is to awaken God consciousness and to serve Krishna through performing this work, particular work as a Brahmana or a Kshatriya. So, yes, because I believe he actually says that they're this divine system, So we see it. It's prevalent in everywhere. It's even prevalent in our society too, but it's not so clearly defined. But people still have qualities that they fit into more particular natures of work than others. So it's there everywhere. You could say it's even there in the spiritual world, right? Because Krishna's having the activities of a Vaishya there in the spiritual world. And there's monarchs and administrators and like this. So did that answer your question?
I guess to clarify, what's the difference between Daivi Varnashram and Varnashram? Because you said is it that Daivi Varnashram, the goal is always God realization, and then Varnashram might be karma for economic development?
If you think of the case of like Jarasandha, he was a king, Kshatriya, He had Brahmana ministers too, right? But they weren't serving Krishna. Their interest was pretty much like fruit of results. So you could use the system for performing sacrifices according to the Vedas and everything, because that's also part of the whole system. Brahmanas doing fire yagas and everything. But if you have brahmanas and a kshatriya who's not focused on rendering service to Krishna or accepting the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then it becomes, materialistic, because it becomes a system where you're interested in being elevated to the heavenly planets. And that's the education you give, and that's the purpose of the rituals and everything like that. So, of course, it's in the realm of the Vedas, so there is still some benefit, at least they're following. But and we know that gradually, when you go to the heavenly planets, then you can also continue up and up and up, and then go back to Godhead. But you can also have material consciousness with it, because there's benefits. You're living according to Dharma. And so you're getting some good results, some good karma. So it can also be like that with Jarasandha, Kamsa, all these demoniac persons. They were so dutiful in their lives, performing Vedic rituals and things like that, but they weren't devotees of Krishna. They weren't actually interested in attaining this godly consciousness. So... Yes, Maternath, Prabhu?
So this comment and question ties into what Prabhu was saying. How does this tie into Lord Chaitanya's teachings? I am not a Brahmana, I am not a Vaishya, I am not a Shudra. Aham Brahmasmi. So is our goal to go beyond this? These designations, or?
Yeah, ultimately our goal is to realize we're not the body and mind. So that's a pretty high level to achieve. Like Parashuram could be a Brahmana, he could be a Kshatriya, he could do anything, right? So that's pretty high level. A pure devotee can be beyond, but in general, for us and general populace, it's not necessarily that we want to identify with these designations and identify in the sense of understanding this is my real self. Like, yes, I am actually a Brahmana, that is me. And then when you think about yourself, and your conception of yourself is always that you're a Brahmana, the highest of the caste, so then there's some pride. But yeah, Lord Chaitanya explained that he is not a Brahmana, not a Shudra, not a sannyasi. He's simply a servant of the Lord. So practically speaking, for us, I mean, because Varnashram society, the system is not very socially supported in the world, and we're doing, some aspects of it in International Society for Krishna Consciousness, whatever is practical to implement. So we're given duties and services which are, can have a particular, more of a nature of one of the Varnas. Like study is more so Brahminical activity. And so we might be engaged in that. We also might be engaged in banking. So we also might be engaged in a Vaishya activity, or cow protection. So it has those natures. Of course, it's because it's service to the Lord, it's actually, transcendental, but you can also say that it has that quality too. And so we don't need to stress so much about it for ourselves, but there are services which a leader can engage us in that fits more so our nature. And then one actually would find that they would be a little bit more like compatible with certain services than others. So Srila Prabhupada always stressed that point about the leaders of the society engaging devotees according to their nature, their propensities. And so that is like more or less how we try to implement Varnashram, at least in our temples, is that we try to engage devotees according to their propensities, and that might change over time, and it does. One might be very nature-oriented in the beginning, have a very passionate nature, but then it kind of like gets purified out, and one becomes more interested in other activities that are more in goodness. So, but ultimately, we want to just focus on that we're Jivara Srupahaya Krishna Nitidas, we're just the eternal servant of Krishna. And all the designations of this world is not actually who we really are. Because even in the spiritual world, we are hearing, it's kind of esoteric, but we're hearing that even, they have expansions, they take on different roles with serving Krishna. So it's mostly just about this, it's all about just this service to the Lord and whatever is favorable for that. So, okay, we're out of time, so thank you very much for listening amidst this noise. And let's have a nice day serving Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.